What is up, everyone? I am Ikro, and welcome to a special episode on my channel where I'm gonna go through my list of best releases of 2024. If you watched my previous video from last year, I don't like to play favorites, so again, this year the list is based on a release date, so I'm not playing favorites like this album is better than that one or this band is better than that one because, in my opinion, there's no such thing. I don't like to compare bands because every band does their own thing. That's why I made the list pretty much like based on the release dates. Obviously, I do have like some favorite albums from the year, obviously, but that only means that I have been listening to them more than some of the others. But that doesn't mean that that band or that album is better than all the previous one or all the other ones on the list. So it's just pretty much based on the release dates, and that's it. Before going into the like official list, I'm gonna run through honorable mentions. Now, just because they are not on the main list, it doesn't mean that these albums are not that great. It's just that I haven't spent that much time listening to them, or they just didn't have that. I don't know, like that pull to like go back and listen to those albums again and again. So, still great albums or great EPs because it's a mixture of everything. I didn't separate like the EP list or album list. I just compiled everything into release list, and that's pretty much it. So let's run through the honorable mentions first. Uh, as always, these are also on the based on the release dates. So first off, Job for a Cowboy, Moon Healer. This is one of the comeback albums from this year. They haven't released anything for, I don't know, like 8, 9, or maybe even more years. I lost count, but it's a great comeback album. Just a pure progressive, technical death metal in all its glory. I really like this album. It could be on a, if you ask me, it could be on a main list as well. But I tried to keep that one short. But still, great album. Another release on this honorable mention list is Before the Dawn and Archaic Flame EP. This is pretty much a follow up to their comeback album Storebringers, and it's pretty much like what you would expect from Before the Dawn. But it's just sort of like an extension of the album. So we have a couple of new songs, cover song, and a live song. So it's a short EP, but still packs a punch, and I like to go back to that and listen to it from time to time. Another one on the list is Aborted and Vault of Horrors. This is a great album throughout, from start to finish. Finish is just so heavy, pretty much what you would expect from this band. And the icing on the cake is they had a pretty interesting choice for guest musicians or guest vocalists in this case. For the album, every song features a different vocalist from like the heavy spectrum, so you can hear a lot of cool surprises and collaborations on this album. So I had to include it on this list as well. Next one is Fractal Gates, One with Dawn. I wish I could spend more time with this album because it's such a journey from start to finish. If you're familiar with the band, you know how they like to mix pretty much like atmospheric elements with melodic death metal, and they did it again on this new album. It's just a matter of me not going back to it more than I would like to. I don't know, but it's still a great album, so it had to be included on this list, and I actually managed to grab one of the last copies of the vinyl as well. So I'm really happy about it. So another great album on the list. Next one, My Dying Bride, A Mortal Binding. It's to me, it's sort of a comeback album for me because uh I don't know, last couple of albums from My Dying Bride didn't really click with me, but I started to listen to, and I checked some of the singles before the album came out on the channel as well. I did the reactions for them, and I really loved what I heard. And once the album dropped, I gave it a listen. Uh, came back to it a couple of times, and it's a really solid record from My Dying Bride. Really brought a little bit of nostalgia sound for me, so naturally had to be included on the list. Next one, this is something completely new for me. I discovered this band pretty much by watching other, YouTube creators. And I really love what I heard. The band is called Mirror, and their EP Mare is on the list. Uh, if you haven't heard this band, you should definitely check it out, especially if you're into more heavy, more thall inspired music. It's pretty much all instrumental. I don't think there are like any vocals, maybe like something in the background or something like that, but it's a full on assault on all your listening senses, man. It's just one riff after the other, with crazy beats, all these incredible stuffs incorporated in this one, and makes this EP such a great listen. The only thing I can think of that, maybe the reason it's not included on the main list is because it can be a little bit too much sometimes. But the EP is like less than 30 minutes long. I mean, there are like albums that are shorter than that on the on the list, man. But EP is almost like 30 minutes long, but it's such a sometimes it can be a little bit too much, but it's a great release from start to finish. So if you haven't heard this one, go ahead and do that, guys. Next one, Leprous Melodies of Atonement. I really wish this one was a little bit higher on the list, or bumped up to the main list. But it's still a great album. Maybe not their best, but they are still experimenting like with their sound. A lot of cool songs are on the album. A lot of cool moments, melodies. You name it. It's still a great album. I love Leprous, and they are still like expanding their sound on every album pretty much. And this one is no exception to that rule as well. So another great album in their discography. Maybe not their best, but still a great album for this year. Number 8, Winter Sun, Time 2. Another one that maybe some of you hoped would be on the main list of best releases of 2024. But it's still a great album. Deserves the honorable mention, definitely. Uh, was the album worth the wait? I would say yes. It's been a while since, people were expecting this album to be released many, many years ago. But it's finally here. You can listen to it in all its glory, and in my opinion, it's best if you listen to both of the albums back to back. So Time One and Time Two after, to pretty much get the full story. So pretty much that might be the main reason why it's not on the main list, because it pretty much demands of you to give it more time, especially since it connects to the previous album. So it's just a little bit time consuming, but still a great album if you listen to it from start to finish, even on its own without the first part, obviously. Next one, Disembodied Tyrant, The Tower Part 1. This is the band that I discovered on my channel this year. Again, obviously the other EP, spoiler alert, will be on the main list, but this one came out a little bit later this year. Gave it a few spins, and I'm really impressed. I was already impressed by their first EP that came out this year from Disembodied Tyrant. But this one is pretty much like continuation of that sound, and pretty much exploring other possibilities in this. I would say, like, I don't know, like progressive deathcore, or however you want to call it. It's so good. Like, it's complex, it's crazy, it's heavy, it's melodic, it's everything, man. It's pretty much like a step up in deathcore genre, if you ask me. Next one, Kublai Khan, Texas, Exhibition of Prowess. I don't know why that name is so hard to pronounce sometimes, but man, what an album! As I said, some of the albums on the list are shorter than some of the EPs, but this one is like 23 minutes of just pure anger, groove, breakdowns, crazy call outs, whatever you want, man. It's just brutal album. I like to call it like the caveman style metal. Just not overly complicated, simple riffs, grooves. Heavy beats, breakdowns, nasty vocals, obviously, and you get this beast of an album. It's pretty fun when you put it on, I don't know, like a road trip. When you put this album, I don't know, it just takes you to a different place. Next one, the Black Dahlia Murder, Servitude. I wish this one was a little bit higher on the list and bumped up on to the main list, obviously, but I just didn't spend too much time with the album. But overall, a few listens that I gave the album, I was really impressed. It's um, given the history of the band and the tragedy that happened a few years ago, releasing this album with pretty much, I don't know, like uh new energy, I would say. It's still like Black Dahlia Murder, man. They instead of like looking outwards, they were looking inwards into the band, like to pretty much like search for the vocalist. So Brian did a great job on the album. Great vocals. As I said, like it's pretty much your I don't know, like regular Black Dahlia Murder album, but uh still keeps you on the toes. There are a few twists and turns throughout. Great riffs as always. Some cool grooves as well. And I just really like this album, and I wish I spent some more time with it. But I'm definitely gonna go back to it more and more in the future for sure. Next one up, Swallow the Sun and Shining. I also wish this one was on the main list, but checking out the singles on the channel, I was actually pretty impressed. A lot of people were complaining about the production or whatever from these new singles, but I actually like them. But once the album dropped, I gave it a listen, but somehow I didn't feel connected to it as with other Swallow the Sun albums. At least that's my experience. I don't know about you guys, but I was expecting something more because I really love the singles, and somehow listening to the album, I sort of like lost, um, I don't know, like attention throughout the like the middle part of the album. It's not so memorable. However, I do like to highlight the closing song, title track Shining, which is a little bit longer song than the rest of the album songs, but it still keeps like it's sort of like a culmination of everything that's been going on throughout the album. But as I said, like that middle part of the album is sort of lost on me. But then it comes back in the last like two songs, and the ending of the album is actually like pretty great. So it does have a little bit of like I don't know how to say this, but it does draw you back to go back and listen to it. But sometimes it feels like a little bit forced to me. I don't know. It's just me because I really love this band. I really love their discography, but this one feels like the album that I'm not going to go back to that often as I would like to. I don't know, but that's just me. But I still love the album, and that's why I included on the honorable mention list. Next one, Gore, A Bud That Never Blooms. This is an EP. And this is also a band that I discovered throughout the channel while I was checking out some other creators, other reactions. And I decided to give it a try, and I was more than impressed. And just a couple of days later, they actually released the full EP, so I had 5 tracks to digest. And I gotta say, I was replaying them more than I expected to. It's a nice little blend of like Sleep Token, Spirit Box, Deftones, and they put a little their own like twist to it. So it's an interesting combination of the I don't know, like the music that I like with some new added like nuances. Especially the vocals are great on the EP. The female vocals are great. So it's just one of the bands that I'll be following forward. Definitely, I hope they will release something new in the near future, except for this EP. Next one. This might be a little bit surprising. I was hoping it would be on the main list, but it's still here. Linkin Park From Zero. It's a great comeback album given the history of the band. Obviously, a lot of people were like polarized about their return, especially including a new singer in the band. And I get that. I mean, I don't know. I do get it, but sometimes I don't. I mean, people change, people evolve. It's been many years now, since the tragedy happened. But when you look at the situation and how they handled their comeback, I gotta say it's a pretty solid album. It's not like they are reinventing themselves by any means, but still the album like goes back to their like guitar roots, and it's pretty heavy if you ask me. It might be like one of the heaviest Linkin Park albums by far. It's not their best album. I'm not saying it's their best album. Obviously, as a fan of the band, I'm always gonna go back to like their Hybrid Theory or Meteora era, but still, like it's a great album, and it deserves to be on the list. And last but not least, on the honorable mention list is Marilyn Manson, One Assassination Under God, Chapter 1. The only reason it's not like on the main list is I didn't have much time, or I didn't spend much time listening to it. But from the few spins that I gave the album, I totally enjoyed the ride. It's a great comeback album for Marilyn Manson. Has a I don't know. The songs are catchy, groovy, moody sometimes. It's pretty much like I don't know. It's one of my favorite comeback albums this year, so had to be included on this list. I don't know. As I said, the only reason it's not on the main list is I didn't have much time to listen to it, or I didn't spend more time that I would like to. Obviously, there are other albums that came out this year that are not even like on the honorable mention list, but um, I don't know. There's just so music being released. It's ridiculous, and I can't even um and comprehend everything that's being released. But I can mention a few of those like Enterprise Earth, Judas Priest, Veil, Pain, Kitty, Oceans of Slumber, Cemetery Skyline, Opeth, Distant, Body Count. All these bands have released cool albums, but I just didn't have. I don't know. They did not maybe have the replayability for me, or I don't know. They just didn't have that they just didn't pull me back in for for some reason, but I was still like I gave them a listen and I liked what I heard. It's just that they didn't have that like wow factor that would pretty much make me go back to listen to it again. But it is what it is. And now, guys, let's get back to the things that we're here for, right? But obviously, no spoilers or anything like that. No like big reveals or anything. As I said, the list is based on the release dates, so we're gonna run through my favorite heavy releases of 2024. So we're starting off with the beginning of a year, and this is one of my favorite albums of this year. So even though it's the first one mentioned on the list, it's actually one of my favorite albums from this year. Darkest Hour, Perpetual Terminal. So this album was released pretty much like at the beginning of the year, the end of February, and it's actually a band that I was hesitant to listen to, even though I'm aware of the band obviously for many years now. But somehow I didn't have the urge to listen to them for some reason. I don't know why. But when they released their first single, "Perpetual Terminal," the title track from this album, I was actually really impressed. I didn't know like what to expect from the band, but that single was really great. And I checked out a few others that they released, and once the album dropped, I was just floored. I was looping that album for I don't know for many weeks, and even to this day, I was actually like blasting the album a couple of weeks ago, and it's such a great album from start to finish, like a perfect mixture of melodic death metal and metalcore stuff with some interesting surprises throughout the album, which I was not expecting. So, all around, one of my favorite albums from this year. Next one, Grayscale Season, Feel Something New. So this is the band and the album that I discovered as some of the other bands as well, like by watching other YouTube or content creators doing their reactions, and I stumbled upon the some of the clips for this band, and I had to check it out. So once I did, I did not look back. The album pretty much features Buster Oldham as their producer, I believe, and I think he even co-wrote some of the songs with the band, and it showcases he did all his magic on the album, and it's just a perfect mixture of atmospheric fall moments with, I don't know, some hardcore-ish stuff thrown in there as well, like a perfect combination between screams, growls, and all around just a great album. And it doesn't even overstay its welcome. It's just under 30 minutes long, I believe. So it's really not that long journey, but definitely worth it. And I like that the album pretty much like ends in a similar way that it begins. So it really has like a nice full circle going on there. So one of my favorites of this year. Next one up, Agremorta Anomalia. So this is actually an EP. It's not an album. It's from newcomers Agremorta, and one of my favorite EPs of this year. If it wasn't for this channel, I wouldn't even be aware of this band, and they actually contacted me, which is really cool. And we've been keeping in touch ever since. Ever since then, I actually did an interview with the band as well, which you can check out on my channel. So you can pretty much like get the idea what the band is all about. And this EP is actually really great. I love what they did on this one. It's their debut release, and it's actually like a concept EP as well, which is one of my favorite things in music when bands do like concept albums or EPs or whatever. And it's a great journey from start to finish. You get like a sort of like an atmospheric industrial metal with all these like progressive elements as well. So it's a really great release. You got screams, you got clean vocals, you got pretty much everything. So from start to finish all around a great EP and a great debut EP from Agremorta. Next up, Imminence, The Black. Another band that I discovered on this channel this year. I believe the first single I reacted to was Continuum, which really grabbed my attention from there on. But once the album actually dropped, I discovered that there are so much. I don't know, bro. Everyone is like, everyone was praising the Continuum song, but when you listen to the album, there's so much more to it, man. Like from start to finish, you can sense the narrative throughout the album. It has its ups and downs. It has fast moments. It has groovy moments. Atmospheric moments, like uh add a violin to all the to their sound. It's, I don't know, from start to finish, it's just banger after banger with a few like instrumental interludes between some songs. It's just a perfect ride from start to finish. One of my favorite albums from this year. Next one, Disembodied Tyrant and Sinestia, The Poetic Era, as I said, spoiler, the other EP from Disembodied Tyrant is on the main list, so it's definitely this one. Uh, Not surprising, definitely, because once I heard this EP earlier this year, I was just blown away. I don't know. I discovered the band, as I said, like with a few previous ones that I was checking with other YouTube creators, and I decided to give it a go. And I'm not sorry that I did that. It's a great EP from start to finish. Like, I don't know. It's pretty much a reinvention of deathcore, adding all these other classical elements to it. Going hyper speed. Vocals are sick as hell on this one. All around, just a great heavy EP, and one of my favorites for this year. One of my favorite bands that I discovered this year, actually. Next one up, knocked loose, you won't go before you're supposed to. Even though I heard of the band before, this is the year that I decided to check it out, and I'm glad that I did because man, oh man, this album is so angry and so different. I'm not too much like into, let's say, hardcore, which is pretty much where they mostly lean into. Is definitely like a mixture of hardcore, metalcore, whatever you want to call it, but adds to that Brian's interesting vocals or interesting vocal approach with the higher register. It definitely stands out from the crowd. Obviously, a lot of cool singles were released before the album came out, and they even got the song Suffocate, which features Poppy on it, nominated for Grammy, and they actually had a magnificent performance on Jimmy Kimmel Live as well, which pretty much pissed off a lot of people watching that, but it was a great exposure for metal scene to pretty much tap into the mainstream a little bit. So great album from top to finish, angry as hell. S- Great innovative breakdowns as well throughout the album, and all around one of my favorites for this year as well. Next one up, Defects Modern Error. This is the band that I discovered thanks to Orbit Culture. Actually, they brought them on their European tour earlier this year, and since I so they were going to open for Orbit Culture. I decided to give it a listen because they had a few singles out already, and I really loved what I heard. It's pretty much like modern melodic death metal with few twists and turns here and there, with cool breakdowns and excellent melodic sense and excellent like guitar riffs and the vocals as well throughout the album. So one of my favorite from this year, pretty much one of my favorite discoveries, as well as I wasn't aware of this band before. Cool debut album from Defects. Next one up, Night Rage, Remains of a Dead World. One of my favorite melodic death metal albums for this year comes from Night Rage. Obviously, they've been doing a great job for many years now. I believe like almost 25 years. So it's been a while, and they had some lineup changes as well. In the meantime, they have a new vocalist, Konstantinos, on this album, which pretty much lit another fire in the band, and the album sounds incredible from start to finish. It's pretty much a homage to your favorite Gothenburg sounding melodic death metal, with their own twists on it, and it sounds really great from start to finish. One of my favorite albums from this year, and I even did an interview with Marios and Konstantinos on my channel, so you can check it out yourself, where we talked a little bit about the album as well. So yeah, one of my favorite albums from this year from Night Rage. Next one up, Evergrey, Theories of Emptiness. So Evergrey released another album this year, Theories of Emptiness, and it's pretty much another step in the evolution for the band. Uh, First, when you look at the album cover, it's definitely something different than what they've been using for their previous releases, which is really cool. I wasn't really sure about the cover at first, but now looking back at it, it's actually really interesting and really great because even their sound is evolved a little bit on this record, but still it still retains that evergrey essence throughout. So I don't think I was ever disappointed by Evergrey album, especially in the last couple of like 10 years, maybe even more so. Um, so this one is no exception to that. Great album from start to finish. Love the ride, love the surprises on the album, especially Jonas Ranks on one of the tracks with his growl vocals, which was really surprising because I was not expecting that. So all around, a great album from these progressive metal giants. Next one up, Bill Murray, American Motorsports.
So when they ask who hurt you, point the finger.
So this is one of the bands that I discovered this year or maybe last year, but they released the album this year. And once the album was released, I wasn't really sure about it. I don't know. It was cool. It was catchy, but I just wasn't really into it. But it all changed when I saw them actually perform live when they were opening for Sleep Token. I was at their show in Hungary, and men are they great live. And I don't know, I was so impressed by their show. And once I checked the set list for their show, it pretty much featured almost like 90% of the songs were from American Motorsport. So I just went back to the album, and it just clicked for me. So ever since then I've been looping this album um nonstop, and it became one of my favorites, especially if you were watching music videos for the singles from this album. You see that the guys can be serious but silly at the same time when you watch them. So great album, great mixture of, like, I don't know, people have been calling it country core, but it's so much more than that. It has a heavy moment, it has some surprises like saxophone, which actually translates really well live, and it's actually used more live, which is really cool. I recommend to go check out Bill Murray live if you have the chance. They are really really great live. So and that adds another element to the album as well. I don't even have to mention John's vocals. All around, just a great, catchy, and heavy album all around. Just a beautiful album from Bill Murray. Next one up, Monochromatic Black, Predacious. Yes, this is another EP from this year, and another band that I pretty much discovered on this channel. And from the first single, Hail the Queen, I was hooked, man. Tanya brings, I don't know, such a great energy to the band. Her vocal performance is top notch throughout the EP, man. Every band member shines, whether it's the drummer or a bass player or guitarist or vocalist. Every band member brings something to the table, and it shows here on this EP, man. It's such a heavy EP, but with some interesting moments throughout as well. From start to finish, just a full on assault on all the senses, man. One of my favorite EPs and discoveries for this year. Next one up, Assemble the Chariots, Ephemeral Trilogy, Episode 1, Unyielding Night. I had to refer to my notes here because it's such a long album title. I didn't want to butcher it, but man, what a great album! To pretty much sum it up, is sort of like a um, symphonic cinematic deathcore. I don't know. The album is pretty much a concept album, obviously. Since the album title is Ephemeral Trilogy, Episode 1, obviously two albums are gonna follow this story. So it's pretty much introduction to their lore, to their world. You can find all sorts of things on their website, even on Instagram reels. They are diving deeper into the story and lore and everything, which is really interesting to me as I like concept bands and albums. So this one had to be included on the list. Obviously, one of my favorite albums this year from start to finish. It's a great ride from the first track till the last. Like, you have that feeling if as if you were listening to a movie soundtrack of some sorts, but with definitely like deathcore elements to it. So one of my favorite discoveries this year as well. Next one up, Dark Tranquility and Time Signals. This is one of my favorite bands of all times, and naturally had to be included on the list as I was waiting for this album for a while now. It might not be their best album by any means in their discography, but it's still a great album from start to finish. It has all the like recognizable dark tranquility elements throughout. So it has that DT essence throughout the album, but it sort of expands on some of the songs. You can hear some things that you might not expect from the band. So that's actually admirable going into I don't even know what album is this for them. Like, I don't know, they have so many albums already out. But yeah, going into this deep into discography and still like bring some new ideas, and pour them into the album. It really shows. So one of my favorite releases of this year, and I love to come back to this album, even though I remember when I first listened to it, it didn't like really grab my attention, but there were some moments that were really standing out on the album, and I just kept going back to it, and it became one of my favorite of the year. Next one, another surprising release or band that I discovered on this channel, Alleviate and their album Demons. So pretty much I discovered the band when they actually released the album. I saw some videos popping up on my YouTube feed, but I gave them a chance when they actually released a video for the title track Demons, and boy, was I surprised, man. I was not expecting anything like that. It's pretty much a mixture of modern deathcore and metalcore, so harsh vocals, clean vocals, which were pretty much the main draw for me. I'm really digging the clean vocals on this album, but the whole journey, like from start to finish, it's one of my favorite albums, and I just kept on looping it ever since it came out. So it's heavy, it's melodic, it has a cool breakdowns, cool call outs, and all around just a great and enjoyable record. Next one up, Flesh God Apocalypse Opera. So, given not like tragic, but some injuries that Francesco has and got in the past couple of years, it's been an uphill battle for the bands to pretty much just weather through the storm. So the result of that is this album Opera, and they actually had some lineup changes as well. Their longtime bassist and a clean vocalist left the band, so everything came down to Veronica, pretty much picking up the clean vocals throughout the album. And in my opinion, it actually she actually did a really great job, as Opera is pretty much uh I would say like my favorite album from Flesh God Apocalypse. I started listening to them when they released The Agony, but I think this one is pretty much like the pinnacle of their sound currently. A lot of cool symphonic elements, insane drumming, obviously, cool guitar riffs, some nice grooves, and paired up with Veronica's clean vocals, the album pretty much has the overall sense of a story, and that's something that I actually really like about this album, because from start to finish, you're definitely on this little journey with the band. So one of my favorite albums of the year, and definitely a favorite album of mine from Flesh God Apocalypse. Next on the list, Throne, Excessive Guilt. So another band, an album that I discovered, by checking out videos and songs on my channel, and it's not surprising that the album is on the list, because again, who else would have fingers, on the music and even on drums, than Buster Oderholm from Humanity's Last Breath himself. To put it simply, it's pretty much like a hardcore fused with soul, and with added like electronic elements as well. It's I don't know, it's one of the shortest albums of the year, definitely, because every song is maybe like just over 2 minutes long. So it doesn't overstay its welcome, but it has a cool elements throughout the listening. So as I mentioned, like some electronic parts as well, heavy breakdowns, great vocals that fit the style obviously, and overall just a great songwriting that, as I said, like doesn't overstay its welcome. So really solid debut album from Throne, and I'm looking forward to checking out more of their music in the future. Next on the list, Wolfheart, Draconian Darkness. One of my favorite melodic death metal bands all around, and one of my favorite melodic death metal albums for this year. Using more of like atmospheric elements on this album than maybe on the previous ones, or at least that's how I perceive it at this point. But it's a journey from start to finish. A lot of cool songs, a lot of great riffs, even great solos from time to time. Great song structures. Love the opening track and the closing track, which pretty much um, makes some kind of a full circle, even though the songs are different, but still, they hold the album together. So a lot of cool songs, a lot of cool melodies, catchy choruses, and the great heavy guitar riffs throughout. One of my favorites melodic death metal albums for this year. Next one up, Seether. The surface seems so far. So this might be maybe like least heaviest release on the list, but still I consider this album to be pretty heavy. I gotta admit that at first listen I wasn't really like too much into the album, but now thinking back on like their previous releases, I think I have a similar experience with pretty much all Cedar albums. So at first listen, I'm not really like feeling it, or maybe something feels off. But eventually, I catch myself going back to the album for some reason, because listening to it, there are so many like cool melodies, hooks, maybe some riffs or some parts that just stand out to me. And sometimes, I just play the album and I see the album like song title, and I'm like, okay, I don't know this song, but then the song plays, and oh yeah, I actually do know this song. I love this melody, or I love this part, or I love this verse, or I just love this moment on the song. And overall, I just kept coming back to the album, and it became one of my favorites for this year. So it might not be like the heaviest from pretty much like whatever I listen to, but Cedar has been with me, I don't know, for at least like 20 years now. And I was never actually disappointed by a Cedar album so far. So this album is definitely one of the best releases of 2024 for me. Next one, Alt from the New World. Another band that I discovered on my channel, going back to, I believe, the first song that I checked from them was The Orphan Breed, which is obviously on this album, but I gotta say, a lot of people say that this is their favorite song from the album, but man, there are so many other great songs to choose from. But I get the appeal of the Orphan Breed. It's one of the most up tempo songs on the album. But I actually prefer the other ones that are more like moody, atmospheric, and pretty much explode during the chorus, or like innovative breakdowns, like in Echoes, which is really cool. So one of my favorite albums from this year, and actually, yeah, like one of them, if I had to choose, like you know the best album or whatever, this would be like on the top of that list, along with, I don't know, like Darkest Hour. So cool new discovery, great debut album, and hopefully I will see guys on their tour, beginning of I don't know, I think it's in March or something like that. I would really love to see these guys live, so hopefully that'll come true. One of my favorite albums from this year. Next one up, Andy Gillian, Exilium. Andy Gillian released his third solo record, Exilium, this year. This time going back to melodic death metal sound, and which was supposed to be an EP, grew into an album, and I'm glad that it did because it's one of my favorite albums from this year. Not just from like melodic death metal, but pretty much like from all the music that I listen to in general. And to just to add to that, Andy actually learned to scream and do vocals just to get this album done. I mean, that's admirable since he's not like a vocalist per se. He's pretty much like a guitarist and plays other instruments as well. But the vocals were pretty much like a new territory for him. But to hear him on this album and hear him nail all the vocals, it's just incredible. It's incredible. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's an incredible job, and one of my favorite album from this year. Great guitar riffs, melodies, guest spots as well on the album. Um, I don't know. I don't even have any other words to say. Just a great album from start to finish from Andy. Next one up, Antheos, An End to Everything.
Watch it go.
So obviously this is just an EP, but it's so good that I had to include it on this list. I started discovering this band throughout this year, pretty much from the singles from this EP. They have released an album last year, but for some reason I haven't checked it out. I have heard of the band, but I just started getting into it when they started to release singles for this EP, and I pretty much covered, I believe, all of the singles except maybe for one. But going back to this EP, whenever I put it on, it's I don't know, it's so good, like perfect mixture of progressive death metal. I don't know, it's so good. It's groovy, it's heavy, it's sometimes even catchy at moments. So all around, just a great EP from start to finish for me. Next one up, Geria Coma. So, as I was expecting, based on the singles that I was checking out as they were announcing their album, Coma actually became one of my favorites. I mentioned this a few times already. I'm not like too much into black metal, but every once in a while, some band will come and I don't know, change my opinion, I guess. But yeah, so Geria might be one of those bands, and this album really stands out from the crowd. It's a perfect mixture of atmospheric melodies fused with black metal, and they just know how to um, build a cool soundscape. So a lot of atmosphere building, culminating with some cool melodic or like shrieking moments throughout the album. So one of my favorite the releases for this year. Next one up, Vola, Friend of a Phantom. Another band that I not well, I can say I discovered on this channel, but I have heard of the band before. I even mentioned on the reaction I did for Cannibal that I actually heard the band live before actually hearing them on the record. But it was sort of like in a passing by at a festival, so I didn't like pretty much stand and listen to them specifically. But I heard the like sound coming from the speakers, and I actually liked what I heard. So once I saw that they actually did a song with Anders Fridén from In Flames, naturally I checked out the song, and subsequently album came out about like 2 weeks later or something like that, and it instantly became one of my favorite albums of this year. And I had to even go back to listen to their back catalog as well because it's such a cool band, and this album is such a great ride. It has ups and downs. It has cool progressive moment. It has mellow moments as well. Great vocals throughout, and all around just a great songwriting. Some odd time signatures here and there that might throw you off, but then once you get used to them, they're so good. So one of my favorite albums from this year, and I've been going back to the album pretty much like at least like once a week, because it has that draw for me. So it pretty much like it's pulling me back. And last but not least, Make Them Suffer and their album Make Them Suffer.
They came in chariots to come and carry us. They came to save us.
Another band that I pretty much started to check out on this channel. I have heard of them before, obviously, maybe even some of their songs, but once they started releasing singles for this album, it caught my attention, and I was expecting the album to be one of my favorites of this year. And surprise, surprise, it actually was. It's not like they are reinventing something new or exploring some new genres, but their fusion of like this, I don't know, like metalcore slash deathcore with some electronics through in there, pretty much defines their sound on this album, and I really love that. Especially they shine on their catchy choruses, but all around just great riffs, great song structures, and the album as a whole has a great impact on me. So one of my favorites of this year. There you have it, folks. So these are my favorite albums and EPs that were released in 2024. Some of them were a little bit disappointing. Some of them were more surprising than the others. But all around, a great year for heavy music, and hopefully some of these albums made your cut. If not, that's also fine. Everyone has their own opinion, so that's okay. So these were my best releases for this year. Let me know in the comments down below if you like this list, or if you have your own made up. Throw the list in the comments down below. I want to check the albums or releases that were your favorites for this year. Maybe I'll get inspired by them. So guys, that being said, thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you liked some of these albums. If not, go give them a listen if you found some of these interesting. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Hopefully 2025 will be even better. uh but based on the albums that are coming out, I'm sure it's going to be a great year again for heavier releases. So guys, I wish you all the best in the new year. Take care of each other, and I will be seeing you again. Cheers.